Very good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of the People's Platform, coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. For the Newsfirst team, I am Jamal Ratnayaka, and today we are talking about a topic that has once more made the headlines and has continued to be in the spotlight every now and then. We are talking about state-owned enterprises and the case for and against restructuring state-owned enterprises. To discuss this topic at length tonight, we have invited to our studios a career administrator who has been in the industry for more than 50 years. He is Mr. Chandrasena Maliyadda, a former ministry secretary at multiple ministries, and we thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. So, Mr. Maliyadda, as giving a precursor to tonight's program, can you just tell us how your experience has been in the administrative sector and being a public employee in the state sector? For over 50 years, you have worked under many professionals, you've worked with many professionals in the government sector. How has that experience been, Mr. Maliyadda?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this program and to share my views. My experience is it's a mixed picture. There are success stories, failures, sweet stories, bitter stories. By and large, the public sector is a service-oriented sector.
Yes.
It's not for profit, but that we have to deliver certain things. And because the public sector is getting funds from the government, we don't invest, we don't spend, but we are provided with funds and facilities and all the other rules and regulations to deliver a service. So our prime motive should be delivering that service. But there are instances where this service is not properly delivered. There are delays, there are refusals, and there are injustices, mixed things. So therefore the public sector, but public sector is always close to the political machinery, the private sector and other sectors. And it is in a way I see that as a mover. You know, you can move and you can, if you want you can move, if you want you can halt the movement. So both can be done. So by moving, you know, you will see a result, you will see a progress, you will see the happiness of the person or the sector which gets the service. So it is a mixed experience to me.
Right. So, Mr. Maliyadda, just apprise our viewers of what sort of ministries you've worked at. You've been a secretary at multiple government ministries. Where have you been employed at while you were in the state sector?
Yeah, well, I was first appointed to the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs, and that was under the head of the state. At that time, the Prime Minister,
right,
and then it became the President. So we have always been under the head of the state. The ministry was, from time to time, with the political change and changes of the head of state, there were changes in the name, but basically it was the policy planning and implementation. But finally, there were two ministries, one for the planning and economic affairs, other one is for the plan implementation.
Right.
So I was in the Ministry of Plan Implementation, and then I became the secretary to that ministry. And then there was a change of the government, and the 5 ministries created for regions, southern, northwestern, central, like that.
Okay.
So I was the secretary to the Ministry of Southern Region. Then again there was another change of government. With that I was appointed as the secretary to the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication, where I retired from the public service. But even after my retirement, my services were obtained for various projects by several ministries.
Right. So before we go into the SOE sector and the case for and against restructuring SOEs or privatizing state-owned enterprises, I've been doing some research myself on SOEs in Sri Lanka, and according to a 2022 report by a well-known think tank here in Sri Lanka, there are 399 state-owned enterprises in the country, of which 52 have been categorized as strategically important, and the aggregate losses of those 52 SOEs between 2006 and 2021 had been 1.5 billion rupees. So when talking about this, Mr. Malia, I think it's quite evident that SOEs haven't been as efficient as one would assume it to be. What is your take on this?
No, my view is, SOEs were not set up for a single purpose. Now, there are two acts passed in 1955 and 1957, which provide the legal and institutional framework to establish SOEs, and they were set up for various purposes. Some were for development purposes.
Yes.
Some were for security purposes. Some were for strategic purposes. Some were for welfare purposes. And some were for mixed purposes.
Right.
So you cannot put all that into one basket and say that, they are making profit, they are inefficient, they are efficient. So you cannot categorize them. But by and large, the people's perception is that SOEs are not efficient enough. You go to the CWE, then there are problems. There may be leakages. There may be pilferages. Then when you go to the CEB office to pay your electricity bill, you have to stand for a while until such time the lady or the gent, have a cup of tea, comb hair, and then come back. And then she or he comes, you reach the queue, reach the paying counter, then they say, oh, we don't accept cash, you have to bring a credit card. So then in the evening you go with the credit card, say now the counter is closed. So this is the story I underwent, and after the retirement I attended to these things, therefore I know well. So this is the usual picture of the state organization. But on the other hand, there's a hidden picture as well. Now if you look at, there are certain houses in remote areas, they have got the electricity.
Right.
So that was provided by the CEB. So you cannot simply say CEB is inefficient, CEB is not service oriented. From the other hand, it is service oriented.
Yes.
They have, so therefore you cannot simply say the SOEs are not making profits. Some SOEs are not meant to make profits, but you have to be cost recovery, but it does not mean that you have every SOE should make profits, because the purpose of establishment SOE is different. And also if you look at the origin, why the SOEs came into being, there was no strong private sector in the country. The production should either come from the private sector or the public sector somewhere. And when the private sector is not strong enough, when it is weak, and then when there are pitfalls, then someone else has to do the job. So this is how in 1957 and 58 these acts were passed, and then establish the SOEs to fill or supplement or the complement the fill the blanks in the economic drive. So this is how the SOEs came in. So, but over a period of 50-60 years, the scenario would have changed. But still, if you look at Sri Lanka, we have entrepreneurs, but they are just like isolated trees. But we don't have an entrepreneur culture. We don't have an entrepreneurial class. Now, if you look at, you will see that Mali at the stores. Then the few years later, it will become Mali and company. Few years later, it will become Mali and brothers. Then few years later, it will become Mali and sons. So far, I have not seen Mali and daughters or the Mali and grandchildren. But this is how it goes.
It flows.
It's a family business. I don't say it's bad, but it is the culture in Sri Lanka. So therefore, the government has to intervene to produce or increase the production, generate employment, and earn foreign exchange. So this is how the SOEs came into being.
But Mr. Malia, the case against state sector enterprises and the government sector as a whole, when compared to the private sector, is that there's a common assertion among the general public that, like you said, the public sector is inefficient, they don't do their work well, they don't do it in a timely manner, and there is also corruption. If you want to get something done at a government office, you have to give them something. That's the common phrase that they use. So if we are to carry on with these state-owned enterprises without privatizing them, in your opinion, what do you do to motivate the staff to be more efficient? What do you do to ensure that there is no corruption in every department? How does the government go about making its state machinery more efficient and more productive?
Oh, I think everyone has to be honest. We have to tell the public the true story. But we know that the public does not get the true story. And there are circulars, there are documents, there are applications. They are very complicated. When ordinary person cannot go and fill the application to enter his or her child into the school.
Exactly.
It's so complicated. So this documentation should be more simplified. I should be able to read it in whatever the language I am competent in and fill it up. But I go to a person. There are tax consultants. Why? Because your tax document, the tax application is so complicated and so many unnecessary information is
required.
But it is simply, what is your income and how much are you going to pay, how much you have paid. Those are the basic things you need.
Exactly.
So it has to be simplified. The other thing is, we have all regulation. Some regulations are introduced during the British, in 1907 and 1937. So the scenario has completely changed. But our laws remain same. Then also the departments, the corporations, the government agents, they don't talk to each other. Now in the same office, if you go to a division secretary, there are so many branches. Pension branch is there, planning branch is there, land branch is there. So if I go and ask something from the planning branch, they will say, sir, you have to go to the pension branch. But there is no coordination. They do not know. So if one officer is not there, then it will not happen. So this is there, this has over the years, this has developed. I can remember when we joined the public service, it was different. Number was limited and people came on time and they had been given a specific task. They delivered it and they leave the office. But today, people come. Now I can remember when we joined the public service, when we attend a meeting, we got only a cup of tea or a plain tea. But today, you go, then you will get some snacks, the piece of cake, and plus at the end of the meeting, you will get a sitting allowance. So these have led to unnecessary corruption, and the people have become lazy and not doing certain things.
But reaping the benefits.
They always look at the benefit. So if the benefit is not coming from the regular official sources, they resort to other ways. Then they expect. Now I can remember there was a person known to me, a kind of a messenger in the immigration department. Years back. So when I went to the department to see a person to get my passport renewed, so I got it done. Then a person came and talked to the same officer and said, sir, I came from Akuras and I want to get this passport. And then he said, no, you cannot, you have to go back and bring this document. So at the end of the day, I went back to collect my passport. Then I saw that man was going with a big smile. I just, how? Sir, Rupial 50 dun, I got it done. So that is how the things happen. Now even in the area where I live, Battaramulla, this department, immigration, department of registration, they are there, Suhurupaya. And people come since morning and they come with their kids, 3-4 generations. And spending money, the time, the fuel, all the pollution, and also the corruption.
Yes.
It is there. So in Sri Lanka, what happens is, the services are not decentralized. They are all concentrated in Colombo. Entire country, entire population has to come down to Colombo to get at least should keep your thumbprint.
Yes, your biometrics.
So what I say is, these things are, we have the online facility, we have computers, we have trained staff. These things easily can be decentralized. It is not being done. So it leads to corruption. And this documentation is leading to corruption. The day the child is conceived, you start preparing documents to get the child admitted to this so-called good school. So these things are there because there are loopholes in our laws, in our practices, in our documents. So these have to be corrected.
Right. So we are in conversation with Mr. Chandrasena Maliyad, the former Ministry Secretary at multiple ministries, and has a track record of being employed in the state sector for over 50 years. We now cross over for a short commercial break. So stay tuned to the People's Platform. We will be right back.
So there is a question of legitimacy, there is a question of whether or not they have the people's mandate.
Present government doesn't have such a mandate.
I think Sri Lankans have to get out of this kind of thinking because when they go to the polls for a presidential election, they always think that, if we put somebody X or Y, they'll pull the country out of the mess, we'll be okay, and so forth and so on.
Because some policies are required to be quickly changed according to the changes.
By doing these emergency purchasings, because we are doing those things in a hurry, so this can affect badly to the quality of these drugs.
We have really an opportunity because Asia is growing, India is growing very, very speedily, India is growing, and we have an opportunity.
Newsline, Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. on TV1.
Welcome back to the People's Platform. Tonight we are in conversation with Mr. Chandrasena Maliyad, a former Ministry Secretary, and we are talking to him about restructuring state-owned enterprises in Sri Lanka, a topic that has come to the fore once more, especially in terms of the economic crisis we faced and the IMF agreements that Sri Lanka struck in order to enter the extended fund facility. Mr. Maliyad, before we crossed over to the break, you were talking about the procedures one has to go through in order to get something done at a state institution. For example, for a certain requirement, you need to go first to the Grama Sevaka and then go to the regional office, and then there are 5 or 6 steps which may be deemed unnecessary by certain people in order to fulfill a certain requirement or get something done here in Sri Lanka. So, in order to avoid that red tape, to avoid that bureaucracy, in your expert opinion, what can be done?
Very simple answer is, you have to centralize the information, the data.
Right.
And you have to decentralize the services. But in Sri Lanka, it is the other way about. Data is sacred. They are decentralized. The data you have are not available with me.
Yes.
So you have to go to each and every department to collect the data. That is one thing. Then the services are so decentralized. So I have to go from post to pillar to get something done. You go to Pradeshya Sabha, then they will say you bring the birth certificate or something, then you go to another office, then they will say, you have to prove your the residential, then I have to go to Grama Sevaka. So this is the issue. Now this is, I am not telling this, but if you look at the World Bank report, they prepare ease of doing business index.
Right.
And if you look at, Sri Lanka is in the place of 99. We are behind Bhutan and Nepal. And Vietnam is number 70.
Right.
Vietnam was at war when we gained independence. And then when we liberalized our economy. So that is the bureaucratic way. These are so decentralized, and you are looking after only your turf. You don't look at the other things. You don't talk to each other.
There is no cohesion.
No cohesion, and also there are no coordination, and you keep your information safe and secret. You don't share it, and as a result of that, people have to carry a heap of documents to a place, and then one document is mean you have to come back.
Yes.
It's a cost, and it is a cost, heavy cost to the investor. Now this is one reason I have highlighted in several times why investors do not come to Sri Lanka, because more than anything else, the time, you must want to make an application for some project, you must be able to know whether you are getting it or not within a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Even to get that answer, you have to spend a couple of years. So then the investor has lost 2 years. By the time his investment opportunities are gone, cost has escalated, the other issues have come up, he has lost the interest, he goes somewhere else.
He goes to another country.
This is why people are leaving Sri Lanka and taking their investment to other countries. Now I can remember when President Premadasa was there, he used to call all the agencies together, the telecom, the electricity board, the land, the UDA, and say, now this person wants to establish an industry, garment factory.
Yes.
Find the land, give the clearance, all were done within 2 weeks. So that has to come, now what happened today, we have all the regulation, we have all the work, we are doing everything, we are doing nothing. But you must have a specific task given to a person. You have to deliver this 100 passports a day, and then if you deliver it, you will get a bonus. If you don't deliver, you will get a punishment.
I think there is a strong case of introducing key performance indicators for state sector employees.
Giving key performance indicator and also applying that. Now what happens is, key performance indicators are there.
In place, but they are not being followed.
They are not being followed. Because if you look at the face and then you smile and say, yes, very good.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be so, it has to be meaningful, and then also it must be strategic. So it is there in the private sector, but public sector is not there, unfortunately. So we have to give a specific task rather than asking you to come at 8 o'clock and leave at 4:15. Then you come at 8 o'clock and then you have the cup of tea, comb your hair, talk little gossip, and by the time the lunch, then you have the lunch, then by the time to go. So this is the system. But what is more important is the delivery of a specific task, specific job. It must come into the public sector.
So talking about delivery of a specific task and job in a more efficient manner, the private sector is known for its efficiency and productivity and also innovation in terms of introducing new methods, new practices and so on. So let's assume that while there is resistance towards the privatizing of state-owned enterprises, there have been successful cases here in Sri Lanka on private-public partnerships. Case in point is Sri Lanka Telecom. We see it's competing with private telecommunication companies and also delivering new and also updated services as time goes on. So against such a backdrop, do you think our governments, the state machinery and our rulers or leaders should focus more on entering into more public-private partnerships instead of going for full privatization of a certain institution?
I don't think it's fair to give a direct answer, yes or no. But when you compare the privatization, non-privatization, public-private partnership, the public-private partnership may be the best option because the public interest also will be retained, safeguarded, and then the private, it will work as a private entity. But what is more important is, once that arrangement is made, you have to regulate and monitor. It's not happening in this country. Now, I was in England some time back with a team of members of parliament, and we went to see some of the privatized ventures there. They have a regulator for each privatized venture. So that regulator job is to ensure that the service is delivered, service is improved, the prices are maintained, and then new connections or new services are introduced. All that is being monitored. But that has to happen. So if there's a public-private partnership, then that will happen. The public interest will remain. So I think agree that the best option would be public-private partnership rather than going 100% public or 100% private.
Right. We are nearing the end of our show, but as a career administrator and someone who has been in the state sector for more than 50 years, Mr. Maliad, for any state sector employee or for any employee watching our show tonight, in conclusion, what sort of remarks or comments would you like to give?
Well, my comments would be that there are two things. You can do a duty that is specified in your letter of appointment or somewhere, but you can move a little beyond that and do a service. So that is the most important thing.
Right. Tonight we were in conversation with Mr. Chandrasena Maliad, the former Ministry Secretary at multiple ministries, and he has been employed in the state sector for more than 50 years. We were talking about restructuring state-owned enterprises in Sri Lanka. Should they go for full privatization? Should they remain as it is and be made more efficient and productive, or should they be turned into public-private partnerships? Thank you very much, Mr. Maliad, for joining me on the show tonight and sharing your expert views. We had a very fruitful conversation. And with that, we conclude tonight's edition of the People's Platform. Take care, stay safe, and have yourself a good night. Thank you.